Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome back, friends. Let's go back to the discussion which we were having in terms of developing a background for how we would be going ahead in this subject. After the first session, I was discussing with my team, my students, and they were of the opinion that somehow we should have gone structurally in terms of opening up with the concept of value chain, even marketing and innovation, and how people are looking at those in contemporary times. It makes sense, I agree with that, but I advise you strongly that somehow you should parallelly be thinking about these concepts while surfing about them in some of my other subjects or subjects by other thinkers and professors, along with web sources and textbooks. You may definitely look into the fundamental definition of innovation marketing. I would be coming for that, and you should also try to look in terms of what a value chain means. In simplistic terms, and taking the advice of my team, value chain is associated with one end to the farthest end of a products or a services journey, wherein in simplistic terms procurement of the basic material to the after sales service, along with all the stakeholders including the organizational members involved in whole of this process, can be looked upon with the perspective of a value chain. Why? Because there are several aspects to it, but one fundamental element is that we have to think in terms of value at every single node during this journey. It is a most simplistic kind of a demonstration in terms of value chain. So, but do read about it and try and associate that reading with this. Why I did not introduce these given definitional frameworks or definitions in my earlier discussion, and right now also I would be slightly reluctantly using those stated definitions, because the whole purpose of this subject is to take you towards a thinking wherein you must find a scope for innovation in all these concepts and definitions, in the concept of value chain, in the definition of marketing, and also the association of definitions of innovation and marketing with an innovative thought process. That is precisely what I want you to do. Before I continue with the journey on, as far as historical development of how we have been innovating upon, let me take you towards a flashback in terms of what I initiated as far as the whole scenario goes. So, you see, if you remember the last video, we talked about that if somehow we start from flat 0, that is reduction of all the needs and conversion of that reduction into minimization of wants by customers, how marketers should be thinking. So, now let us take this scenario from the marketers side. If marketers would have foreseen that somehow the equipment which they are developing, let us say to be used in massive construction and mining, excavations and those kind of things, large equipment is being manufactured around the world, and that has a very high sales around the world. I was talking to one of the senior executives of one of the largest companies in the world in terms of this kind of an equipment, earth movers and and I am not referring to specific brand here, but those kind of companies which are involved in such kind of equipment manufacturing. I asked this executive that, do you somehow feel that though you have done very well, you have marketed your equipment and that has supported a very large excavation and mining industry as well as construction industry, do you feel that somehow that has not been contributing in environment at large, or the way we look at environment today or the needs of the environment today? You see, that was an informal discussion where, with reference to their responsibility, they cannot come in front and say that yes, they have contributed to that this situation at large which we are facing. But definitely as marketers, if they would have seen this complete value chain, the effects of their machinery and equipment in tomorrow or their tomorrow or the world's tomorrow, if they would have foreseen that, then definitely they would have done some marketing innovation so as to rationalize the complete process while not compromising on their growth and profits. It is a tough question because competition is always rising and people always say that if I would not do, then someone else would do that. But then market leaders, what are they doing and what they should be doing? If they just are actually watching up their back and someone is approaching them and they want to run a step ahead, I do not think that whole of the marketing intelligence should be focusing upon this element only. You see, I can't imagine so many geniuses in terms of marketing just looking at being one step ahead. Mobile manufacturers, for example, they are very innovative in terms of as far as the equipment goes, the services goes, the association of platforms goes, and so on. But would they ever be looking at the repercussions which this industry is bringing in? Would they be looking at the associated industries which should be benefited at large as far as the whole scenario goes? Looking at repercussions of one's steps, looking at the benefit of all the stakeholders associated, minimizing those repercussions and converting those into benefits at large for everyone and enhancing the benefits of the stakeholders of one's company, that is where the concept of innovation in marketing lies. So, that is precisely the point. I would not be giving an immediate solution of what these large equipment manufacturers they should be doing, although I have some clues for you which I would be discussing with you later on, but that is what precisely this subject is looking towards, and that is what we would be introducing step by step in systematic manner in due course of time. But let me come back to the story where sales innovation was the call. And when we are growing geographically into different markets and repeated sales to the same customers, then on the other side, as I said, competition is coming in, and when competition is coming in, similar products might not do good, then definitely there is an element of product design which was being focused upon as far as the whole scenario goes. So, that is what companies started focusing upon. Product design required further deliberation on production capability and then definitely several other developments which plant machinery and equipment required as far as the whole scenario goes. Simple example, when contemporary newspaper was rethought of in terms of colored newspaper, then definitely machinery had to be that way, ink industry had to be that way, paper had to be that way, simple newsprint had to be replaced with glazed newsprint and so on. So, different kinds of production capabilities had to be developed in due course of time to support that kind of differentiation in product, and that is where this production line augmentation comes in, which leads to product line augmentation and product line development and then product width development, and whole lot of a scenario gets developed. From there again there would be a situation wherein so much of innovation in terms of development of product and production line might not be there. There might be stagnation in terms of designs. At the end of the day, after a particular kind of a stage, automotives could not go for radical design changes because the design suppliers or the machinery required for accommodating those designs would not cater to in terms of price rationalization or other equations, and there might not be so many customers for that kind of extreme design change. So, you have to optimize everything in terms of as far as, so you have to go through universalization of production processes while differentiating in the products, a tough call, a tough call. So, that is the perspective wherein world started focusing upon, get fixed upon as far as, but definitely this journey went well through lots of innovation, and product innovation definitely is innovation in marketing. But we would not be focusing upon this, we would be focusing upon the larger context in terms of what should have been done and what should be done now. If some of you are executives in different companies, I want all of you to think in terms of what should you be doing in terms of augmenting the complete value chains within your organizations, and that is what is the purpose again of this subject. While moving from this story of product line to production line to product line and so on, after a sort of fixation, then comes in story about what can be done with prices. Can we absorb costs? Somehow many companies started focusing upon. Retail organizations like Walmart and other organizations, they are huge examples of as far as developing their own bargaining power and procurement from all over the world, and they utilized that to their advantage in terms of lots of price innovation. Several kinds of retail companies, several kinds of food chains, they started focusing upon price innovations. There were different kinds of methodologies in terms of pricing which got introduced, pay as you use and so on. Several tire companies also started charging in terms of the number of miles you would drive and so on. Several price innovations, they creeped in. In the meanwhile, communication technology is also developing, interconnectivity is also developing, and whole of the world is realigning itself. Concept of globalization is coming. So, larger geographies with scaled up production from this end to that end, and distribution perspective is getting impetus, and lots of distribution innovation is being called upon. So, innovation is traversing, it is getting fixated at one part of or one element of marketing, then moving towards the other element, and both of these elements are being coupled up, then moving towards the third element, and continuously being supported by technological advancements in different spheres which are being utilized by these organizations to their advantage. Interconnectivity, software and all these path breaking advancements brought in lots of advantage for different companies, and they started using that to develop the market further. But still we are not looking at the perspective of innovation in marketing which we should have, and somehow I would not say we lost the bus, but you would realize at the end of the day we somehow, I would be using those terminologies from stated texts which we would be referring to in this subject, and then these 2-3 words which I would be elaborating upon briefly, very interesting concepts: commoditization, consolidation, these kind of things started taking place. What to do now? What to do next? Somehow you would realize that salt industry also wanted to differentiate between two different kinds of salts. Sugar industry also wanted to do to make some differentiation. You see, commodities themselves wanted to differentiate in terms of as far as reaching to the larger pie of customers or getting a larger market share. Then leave aside the products which actually thrived on differentiation. And then what would pencils do? What would color manufacturers do, what would toy manufacturers do. Not everyone is, I should say, intelligent enough to focus upon market development as Barbie did. Not everyone is focused upon in terms of developing a communication and then customization in terms of Nike goes. Adidas did that, but then Nike was a step ahead in terms of as far as bringing things on board, and lots of innovation has been done in terms of as far as customization of the shoes as per the requirement of the customer goes. So, those kind of things are there, but definitely those were adopted by people who could absorb the costs in due course of time after they got scaled up and they kept on moving. What about the larger part of the industry? How many such huge brands are there in this world which we can claim that those are maintaining the equal levels of growth? That is the prime question. And the most important question is that what are they contributing in terms of reducing the repercussions which they have created so as to benefit all and to support or benefit the stakeholders of their value chains. These are two elements which we would be focusing upon as far as the whole scenario goes. I have not yet opened up the definitional frame, which I would be doing in my next session, wherein we would be going through a systematic flow of slides. So, but again the point is that somehow at this juncture, let us just circle around the concept we are trying to dwell upon as far as what we have been doing. So, then pricing to distribution, again exploring larger geographies, and distribution not only enabled reaching to the customer, this connectivity in terms of distribution was focused upon with one more innovative step, that is converting your customers or those geographical areas as your suppliers. So, here you are becoming buyers from their side and supplying your goods to them as customers as well. Many companies adapted this methodology with lots of zeal, and that was also seen a wonderful innovation in due course of time, two-way relationship. So, ITC did it very nicely when they went for the project eChaupal, and several other companies. Today Patanjali, they are doing it very nicely in terms of as far as developing this two-way relationship with their customers and their customers being their suppliers and even their workforce, part of their workforce as well. So, several other organizations globally, they adapted it well, Hindustan Lever and several other organizations, they did it nicely. So, here comes the perspective. Then again, stiff competition, the hill is steep, and when I say competition, the number of competitors also started getting reduced in due course of time, because continuous scale up motivated mergers, acquisitions and those kind of things. Today you would realize that you think about any industry at this contemporary stage, either there would be lot many fragmented suppliers or producers working very regionally at very small levels, wherein branding is a major issue, but they are doing that in a very smaller sphere where people know them personally. So, those kind of small scale manufacturers, they are mushrooming, developing, and that is good for entrepreneurship development of a nation as such. India is working on Make in India, and which is a very pivotal step for entrepreneurship development and employment development at large. So, either that is going on, which is very good, but that again would bring in the question of universalization of quality, and subsequently we might enter up into the similar kind of a cycle which we have passed through. But fortunately, the universalization of technology is already there, so might not be that big a question in terms of as far as yes, scaling up would definitely come up as a question in due course of time. On the other side, you have very large players who are big brands, and those are very specific in numbers. you choose any industry, you would realize you may count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and then the number starts getting reduced. Even in my profession wherein we publish our researches, there are very specific kinds of groups working in terms of as far as this research publication space goes. So, for example, you have Science Direct, Elsevier, you have Emerald, you have Frontier. There are specific groups and they are associated with larger number of journals, but those number of groups are lesser. So, you may say that you have larger number of journals within those groups, but then wouldn't it be better that all the institutions, they would have been their own publications, they would have been pursuing their own publications and putting up pivotal researches, whatever they are doing for the community to refer to. The innovation perspective which we started focusing upon, this is very challenging and I would be discussing upon these kind of examples in due course of time. Same entrapment we fell into when we focused upon content development in, for example, management and these kind of courses. We started focusing upon pedagogical inputs using case study methodology or no case study methodology, but did we focus upon content development and looking upon at the definitions with an innovative perspective? Not much of it. How many books can you count in particular kinds of fields available to students to deliberate upon the differentiation of thought process? Do we have that? I do not know. And this is again a marketing perspective basically. What publishers did in terms of as far as being a marketer goes, how did they think in terms of developing the complete value chain goes? They went for an incremental perspective in associating co-authors and adapters and then e-books and so on. That was an incremental innovation. Should I be using word entrapment? Probably yes, because the other day when I was talking to my students, and this is habitually I do in every semester, one of my classes, and that is again a subject on innovation. I have 180 students and I was asking them how many of them they have read complete text in past 1 year or so. I would not tell you the answer in the percentage. I am standing in one of the premier most institutions in this country after all. And then in my MBA class, my students are very honest. So, how many of you have actually read a complete marketing book? I would not give you this answer. This would be very disheartening for the publishers. I do not know what is to be done. So, the perspective here is that historically this is how we reach to a point of fixation. What should we be doing now? Then came in customer relationship management, then came in repositioning, then came in products converting themselves into something away from what they were doing or what they have been focusing upon up till now. Many brands, they started getting associated with other brands to give a meta marketing perspective, associated marketing perspective, accessories marketing perspective. Printers, they started earning money from cartridges. What else could have been done? That is the point. Many times you look at the communication given by computers and printers, and personally as the student of marketing and strategy, I realize that somehow we are reaching to the point of where we might not be able to say more about what we want to do, what we want to say and how things are. And that is where it's a huge, it's a whole lot of a journey of innovation if you will look at things basically historically. But that is the point, we got fixated somewhere. And the basic job of innovation, ladies and gentlemen, especially innovation in marketing, is to keep the things going, with a perspective of benefit realization by all the parties. That is where whole lot of a thought process comes in. Otherwise, contemporary text gives us ample food for thought in terms of stopgap arrangements and moving ahead. And as one of my good friends told me long back, when I was working with media industry, and I said that there might be this kind of a competition which is coming in, there might be this content based kind of development which whole of this world would be having, and X, Y, Z, and I was pondering upon so many things in as far as the whole communication industry goes, and he very quietly told me after half an hour of discussion over a cup of tea, he said that by that time I would have retired and you would have grown, far ahead in this industry so as to be responsible for any of these kind of things. Just relax. So that is also an approach wherein business leaders have been thinking in terms of what happens in my lifetime. But that should not be the call. I was talking to a group of very senior executives in a large organization wherein they have this 10 years window, 8 years window of their retirements, and their boss, and they are large in number, they are intelligent people, they are science people, they are marketing people, management people, and their boss was talking to me, the head of the organization, and he says that this force is still there with me for almost 8 years or so, and if they do not innovate in terms of whole lot of scenario goes, then my company would plummet down by the time they retire. And that is the kind of my anxiety, and I humorously asked him that when are you retiring? So he said, I still have 5 years. I said, then that is a dangerous situation, let me handle this, and I went ahead for a 2 days discussion with these people on how they should be looking at as far as the whole innovation scenario goes, and definitely it initiated a discussion. I would not say that it changed the complete scenario in whole lot of the game itself. Now there is one more thing which I want to add here. Not only environment, not only climate change, not only other elements which we are focusing on as far as the whole scenario goes, not only abrupt situations like COVID-19 and God forbid should not come back at all, not only this, but then rise in the income levels, disposable income, options to spend that income, and these aspects also are leading the scenario towards larger consumption. And when we start thinking in terms of larger consumption, it is sort of an irreversible cycle. However romantically we think in terms of reduction of everything and aware customer who would not be using many things in times to come, but larger consumption is a widespread kind of a phenomena. And if you think in terms of larger consumption of, just add energy here, this is a frightening thing basically. If we do without this, world might slow down, which is again detrimental, and if we do not do something about it, then again it would somehow, if we go ahead with this, then again there would be a problem. What is to be done? Impetus as far as the whole situation in terms of innovation marketing is the call of the day. Responsibility lies on the shoulders of a marketer to think beyond the contemporary definitional framework and look for a scope within these definitions on your screen right now in terms of innovation and bringing innovative ideas, not just to add to these definitions, but to really make a difference to this world. I will start my next discussion from this slide only, and then we will be focusing upon how to look at these definitions in due course of time. I will be joining you back in next session. Keep enjoying. Goodbye.